time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod, or should I say welcome to Star Wars Escape Pod. If you are a first-time listener, then massive welcome to the show. We'd love to have you stick around and enjoy all the crazy cool stuff that we got planned for you this year. And it's a headstrong way to kick off 2022. I can't believe they say it out loud with me, 2022. It sounds weird, right? But this year is going to be crazy. It's going to be busy. There's a lot of stuff coming down the road. And let's just get into everything that you need to know about this podcast before hitting that subscribe button and before sticking around for the rest of the year. Let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
All right, so for those of you who have, for those of you who have been tuning into the show for the last year or even since September 2019, which is when this thing started up on Podbean and expanded to all the other podcast platforms out there, a massive thank you to all of you guys. And we really appreciate all of your support, all of the kind reviews, feedback that we've received, ratings. I mean, you know, it's we absolutely really appreciate it. It really helps us out with algorithms and people finding the show, and it is ad free. So, you know, the fact that people tune into the show, really the only thing that matters about it is to us seeing our numbers grow, because there's no cent that's made out of this, making this show. I mean, we actually, I've been putting money into this. Other people have actually put money into this show because for buying equipment and everything like that. People in my life and you know, even Blake and everything. It's just absolutely. Blake is our co-host, and my lovely fiance having planned a lovely gift in the form of this module that we record on now as of this year going forward, as of this episode actually going forward. We'd love to continue to record on this thing, assuming we're not doing remote calling. And you heard me correctly. This is our first ever in-person studio setup that we've had ever, or have ready to go ever since starting the show in the first place, which is, you know, we used to do a little bit of in-person on one microphone, which was a condenser microphone. It was a bit echoey. You know, you could hear kind of the echoes around the room and everything like that. Now, I've moved to a bigger place. I've got an entire room just dedicated to doing this podcast. Chairs, table, setup, mics, cables, boom arm, like all the stuff you can think of is right here in this room sitting with me, and along with all of these Star Wars collectibles. And if you follow us on the Twitter feed, you'll maybe have seen a few teaser pictures. But yeah, it's still kind of in progress, but I mean, it is it's functional now. And you know, going forward, a lot of our episodes are going to sound slightly differently because of the new setup. But it is an exciting change, and really been looking forward to this for a very long time. And honestly, did not think that this would be a reality when I started doing this podcast just at my computer with a microphone. And you know, if you guys have any interest in making podcasts at all, you know, feel free to just send me an email and ask me some questions, because it's always a pleasure hearing from you guys. And secondly, you know, I'd love to kind of share what I know as far as getting a podcast up and running off the ground and everything like that. So yeah, feel free. Any way to contact us is literally in every single description of every podcast episode ever. at the bottom. And our email is swescapepodcast@gmail.com, as well as Twitter handle and an Instagram handle for at swescapepodcast. We also have a link to the Discord, which has a great way to stay on top of Star Wars news in there. Great little tool. But first, I'd like to say as well, big welcome to everyone who's new. I know I said that before, but I'll say it again. And we're going to just quickly run through everything we've done on this show in the past and talk about very briefly what we will be covering in the future. So let's go back to the beginning where we do have a couple episodes here and there, various subjects explaining this or that and things to do with Star Wars. But our big deal here on Escape Pod is we love to do after shows. We love to do content based on current Star Wars content. And whether that's in the form of reviewing episodes of The Mandalorian or The Clone Wars or whatever, we've got after shows spanning from Clone Wars all the way to now the Book of Boba Fett, and including commentary tracks of the films, even the holiday special more recently. We did Ewok Adventures, Caravan of Courage, and the Battle of Endor, or Battle for Endor. And they've been really, really fun to do. When I started this podcast, we had a friend of mine, Diego, came on and acted as co-host for over 40-something episodes to get the show off the ground. And what we did was we sat through Clone Wars and watched chronologically, beginning to end. And that's how we got through. Well, he got through the Clone Wars. That's how he got through it, was with me. And we produced that sub-series of the podcast called Clone Wars Talk. So if any of you guys are looking at going through Clone Wars for the first time, that's a great way to go through it by looking at the podcast descriptions. It goes part 1 to 40-something in our podcast format. And in the descriptions of each of those podcasts, it tells you what Clone Wars episodes we watched in order from top down. And that's the order that you should be watching them in if you want to do it chronologically. You can do it season by season on Disney Plus. It's annoying to do the chronological thing because you got to jump back and forth between seasons a few times, but it is so worth it. And we had just such a great time talking about the Clone Wars for so long and for that many episodes. We even included the unproduced episodes. We included the adapted episodes. For those of you who are unaware, the Clone Wars was never finished, even though we did get a final sort of season. It was kind of them throwing us a bone. There's still about 20-something episodes that they never made. There was a novel called Dark Disciple, which we reviewed. There's also a comic book called Son of Dathomir, which has some Darth Maul episodes in there that were all adapted into canon material. And, we go through it all. We covered it all in chronological order, and it was absolutely fabulous. A lot of great feedback on that. And that's pretty much what this entire podcast is built on. So I highly recommend it. It's the first thing I tend to recommend. However, they are older episodes, so the editing was not as great, and it was maybe a bit slower, and it's still trying to find our footing, I guess, in a way. But it is a great sub-series, and I definitely recommend it for anyone who's never seen the Clone Wars before. If you want a bit of an aid in kind of watching a couple episodes of Clone Wars and then need something to listen to in the car or on your way to the grocery store or whatever, you can let us, Diego and I, entertain you for an hour and a half or whatever ends up being, all about just breaking down those Clone Wars arcs and those characters and those plots and everything like that, really getting into the nitty gritty of the Clone Wars, which is really cool. We also have a really great sub-series more recently we've been doing called What Happened. And Blake and I have been responsible for that. Blake is our co-host on the show, and you'll hear him quite often in more recent episodes, as well as a lot of episodes going forward in the future. And our What Happened episodes tend to gravitate towards a singular character within the Star Wars stories. And we take every appearance that they've made through a book or a comic or a video game or a movie or a TV show or whatever, and we string it all together in a linear chronological format and then talk about that character in that way, as if all their appearances through all the stories were one story. And it's a great way to kind of uncover what happened with these characters. And so that's why our sub-series is called What Happened. And you'll find What Happened episodes for Darth Maul, for Boba Fett. We did one for, oh my goodness, I mean, we got so many. I think we did an explanation one for Tar Vizsla, I believe, which is one of the, it was the first Mandalorian Jedi. We have more lined up. We did a What Happened episode for Echo, who is a character, a clone that showed up in Clone Wars and eventually the Bad Batch. There's a lot of stuff. So those are great. We did commentary tracks for the films Caravan of Courage, Ewok Adventures, all the 9 episodes, Solo: A Star Wars Story, Rogue One, absolutely everything, which means that you can sync up with the movie on Disney Plus at home and hit play with us at the same time. And we just talk over the film and kind of break down behind the scenes stuff, maybe fun facts that we know about the film, and different scenes and everything like that, characters, developments that happen within the film to try and connect it to other things. And it's a group effort with a few of us all talking, and so it's a good time. We did reviews slash after shows, but more like reviews because they're kind of day of when the episode's released. For the Bad Batch, we did those for season 1, as well as the Mandalorian. We had Mandalorian nights for season 1 and 2, talking about these episodes kind of after we saw them. And we have a sub-series called Lightspeed, which is short, under 15-minute length episodes, which give you Star Wars news and headlines in a very express format. All under 15 minutes, you might have a month's worth of headlines packed into one episode. And so far, we don't have too many of those just because they're kind of rare. It's usually when we have a dump of Star Wars news that's like there's so much to talk about that we haven't been able to address it in individual episodes on the podcast before, that we end up just kind of hashing it out. Just me in a single 15-minute length, boom, there you go. 10 Star Wars items on the menu to talk about, and we just kind of like get it out that way, just vomit it all out onto one episode, and so that we're kind of up to date with Star Wars news. We've had more recently, once in a while we do trivias. We do Star Wars Ultimate Trivias to celebrate with our own trivia system here on the show, and you'll hear custom questions. This is not a game you can buy. These are questions that I've come up with. We have over 170 now at this point, and it keeps on growing. And a friend of mine, Wes, who's been on the show maybe once or twice, has kindly made us this incredible Python script that runs a trivia program with multiple different tiers and a score system, and so it's a great time. It's a great time to celebrate Star Wars in that manner. So the trivia gets wild. That's how we kicked off 2022 2 days ago with a trivia game, and of course to also celebrate, as we've now published this will be the 168th episode ever of our podcast, which is crazy. We had some very interesting subjects in the past. More recently we had one comparing Middle Earth with Star Wars, and kind of taking a look at some older articles that were published to StarWars.com by both Dave Filoni and Brian Young, kind of making comparisons between the two franchises and kind of what Star Wars has been inspired by from Tolkien's stories, and where George may have gotten some of the beats for A New Hope. And let's see, we got of course, yes, we had the Book of Boba Fett come out more recently, so we'd have an after show for that. And just a lot of we've had some guests in the past. We had Jess on from the Boba Fett fan club. We had I think Dom. We had Dom, who plays Bounty Hunter on The Mandalorian, show up. Maybe it's like a year and a bit ago or something like that. And it's been a really crazy fun time doing this podcast. And we really look forward to the next year doing more episodes. And of course, we love to hear feedback as to what you guys like to hear on this show. But just looking forward at the amount of stuff we have, we're going to be putting out, of course, more What Happened episodes and more reviews. I mean, we've had video game reviews for Star Wars VR Pinball and Tales from a Galaxy's Edge VR and Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Squadrons. And it's been a great time, and we look forward to continue to do those reviews. And of course, book reviews as well. We've had an entire episodes dedicated to Light of the Jedi and A Test of Courage and Into the Dark, some of the High Republic novels that have come out in the last year. And, it's hard to stay on top of absolutely all of it, but, at least it gives you an idea as to where we're at and, kind of our thoughts on these new stories and this new era that comes out. And it's not exactly a full-time job of ours to be doing this stuff. So, we can't absolutely cover everything. But if there's a particular thing you guys want us to talk about, we do love to hear from you guys when the time is convenient to send us the feedback. So you know how to get in touch with us. It's in the description at the very bottom. So let's take a look at all these crazy new shows coming out this year. I mean, first and foremost, I guess I mentioned we already have one episode for the Book of Boba Fett, but furthermore, oh, look at that, the soundtrack got released on Spotify by Ludwig Göransson, and we look forward to more episodes in the future featuring Blake and I, and perhaps even other guests that we can bring on from past episodes and new guests as well, about talking all about this legendary character in his own series, in his own show. And man, like it's a time to be alive for a Star Wars fan. We have the Andor series, the Cassian Andor Rogue One series coming out later this year. And what is that going to look like? It's supposed to be like a spy espionage show with perhaps, I guess maybe we'll get a lot of, maybe some interaction with the beginnings of K2SO and Cassian Andor meeting for the first time. I know they did that story in a comic book, but let's just take a look at the official trailer for this thing. We got a YouTube ad here. Diego Luna reprising his role as Cassian Andor.
Everything I did for the rebellion. Rogue One, in many ways, it's a film that connected new audiences with the oldest fans. It was a bittersweet feeling, on the premiere, knowing that it was just one film. But then magic happens, right? As you can see, we're getting ready. We're building stages, we're rehearsing, we're training, we're trying costumes, we're doing everything to make sure we do the best show. I'm really excited having the chance to explore Cassian. It's really fun to go on a set that is emulating something you like so much.
The enormity of this is like doing a big feature film.
It's very cinematic. For me, that's where the excitement is.
12 episodes, 12 scripts, over 200 named cast members, over 6,000 crowd people, a lot of creatures that come in from the creature department.
We treat this exactly like we would a film. There is no difference in our approach.
Every creature and droid that we've been building has the same care, level of attention to detail as the previous films.
It's huge, it's thrilling, but also it's wonderfully challenging.
There's tons of possibilities to explore. It is the building of a revolution.
All right, so Star Wars Andor, a complete original series to Disney Plus, comes out later this year. And we're looking forward to that. Of course, you can expect after shows from us, or after show / reviews from us, and really kind of breaking down those stories and making connections from that with some of the comic books and, of course, the Rogue One related novels that came out a few years ago. And to think that Rogue One came out, man, I think it's almost been 5 years, I think, since that movie came out, which is pretty nuts to think about. But yeah, lots of cool stuff coming. We also have the Kenobi series coming out later this year in the summer is what I would imagine, and they also released a teaser trailer for that. So let's take a listen to this.
There's a hunger for this character to come back. The fans have been waiting long enough,
Something that's extremely exciting is the return of obviously Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is quite a dark time that we're coming into with him. Just being a Jedi, it's not safe. There's Jedi hunters out there.
At least he has this one task left, which is to keep Luke safe.
That's definitely a starting place for our story. The interesting thing is going to be where it goes from there.
The most beautiful thing of all is that it's brought me back together with Hayden.
We are bringing back Hayden Christensen to reprise the role of Darth Vader. We couldn't tell the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi without addressing Anakin or Vader.
Have another swing at each other might be quite satisfying for everybody. We hope that you enjoy it as much as we enjoy making it.
A new legendary show comes out again this summer with Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus, and it's a very short teaser trailer there, but this story will begin 10 years after the dramatic events of Revenge of the Sith, where Kenobi faced his greatest defeat, the downfall and corruption of his best friend, brother, and Jedi apprentice Anakin Skywalker, who of course turned into Darth Vader. And that's also going to be a crazy thing to talk about. And 10 years after Revenge of the Sith is an interesting timeline because it's square in the middle between the two trilogies of the prequels and the original trilogy. So you're going to have a lot of interesting little connections there. The Sith Inquisitors are also kind of running around still hunting Jedi because this is also prior to all their demise in Star Wars Rebels, but after the events of Jedi Fallen Order. So it's really kind of a bit of a high time still, I guess, for these Inquisitors to be hunting Jedi actively. And Obi-Wan, being a Jedi who I guess never was confirmed to have died, is probably the priority on their list. So it's going to be very interesting as to see how he protects Luke Skywalker, which is what he's doing right now on Tatooine, and how Anakin's role as Darth Vader plays into this story somehow, and perhaps how they might even come face to face again. I mean, it's something that I never thought would happen or never thought they could do because, of course, the dialogue in Episode 4 doesn't really refer to a second duel that happened, and unless maybe that's what they do talk about of Darth Vader and Obi-Wan's meeting and, saying, him saying, when I last fought you, I was but a learner, but now I am the master, or whatever he says. So, it could be very, very cool as to kind of whatever they do with that. And then, of course, we have Bad Batch Season 2 coming out at the end of the summer, is what I imagine, or probably closer to fall, maybe. And that's going to look like very interesting. I don't actually know if we even have a Season 2 trailer, but it's been confirmed that is coming down the road, and beyond that, of course, we have finally The Mandalorian Season 3, which is going to likely set the bar for this giant crossover that they're going to have between that show and the Ahsoka show, and perhaps we'll see what happened with Grogu and Luke Skywalker and everything. So an incredible amount of stuff to look forward to, not to mention Wave 2, I think, of the High Republic, which they're going to be launching this year, and all the continuing novels and comics that happen with that. We also see the return of Dark Horse Comics coming to Star Wars again. Prior to the Disney era, Dark Horse was the main publisher for Star Wars comics for a very long time. And prior to that, it was Marvel, actually, ages ago. But for a good long while, Dark Horse did act as the main publisher for Star Wars comics. And when Disney bought the franchise, they owned Marvel and decided to save a bit of money and keep the license within the company and publish Star Wars comics through their own company, which was Marvel, which makes a lot of sense. But more recently, they've been doing a lot of outsourcing, and they have given some publishing agreements to IDW, which is another comic book publisher. So I guess Dark Horse kind of approached them, or I don't really know how it worked, but they made some sort of agreement, and now Dark Horse has a license to publish Star Wars comics again. So I don't know what that means for IDW, or whether or not we'll have 3 comic book publishers now, being with Marvel, Dark Horse, and IDW, or maybe it'll just be Marvel and Dark Horse. I have no idea. But we're going to be seeing Dark Horse Star Wars comics coming out later this year, or even within the next couple months. We have more audio books to review and get into those stories from audible.com. They've been really good about publishing these amazing stories. They've done 3 so far. They did an adaptation of Dr. Aphra, the comic book series. They did an adaptation of volume 1 and 2 in a audible kind of dramatized-ish version. They did a story called Dooku Jedi Lost, which really explored the origins of Dooku as a Sith Lord and as a young Jedi within the Jedi Temple. We also got one more recently called Tempest Runner, which was a story that takes place within the High Republic, and it was about Lorna D, I believe, which was one of the main Nihil, I guess, leaders within their group, which is they act as the antagonists of the new era in Star Wars, being the High Republic, taking place about 200 years before Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So there is an incredible amount of stuff to stay on top of when it comes to being a Star Wars fan or listening in on Star Wars content and whatever else. And Star Wars Escape Pod, I like to think that we're going to be able to do the best job we can heading into the new year, just trying to stay on top of it with all these crazy things coming out and keeping you informed. And even if we can't read and consume every book and comic that comes out, we'd still like to keep you informed as to what is coming out. And we do talk about those kind of things on every episode. And of course, the things that we don't get to, we end up kind of either rehashing or throwing into for the first time in those light speed format episodes that come out with an under 15-minute timeline. So if you subscribe to Star Wars Escape Pod right now, this is my final pitch to you guys. For those of you who are brand new to the show, you're not going to miss a single beat when it comes to Star Wars news. We really get into all of it right here on the podcast. And once again, if any of you guys have any feedback, I said a big thank you earlier to just everyone who has helped us out, but going into the new year, we'd love to start off strong. And for anyone who hasn't done the favor of giving us a nice 5-star, and if you can't, maybe even just send us an email and tell us why you don't want to rate 5 stars. We'd love to know why. But if you can, please let us know what we can do to kind of make the show better for you. And we'd love to get those 5 stars. And even if you want to leave a review behind publicly, just kind of recommending the show, giving your stamp of approval, we'd love to see those come in on whatever podcast platform that allows reviews. We do love to see those kind of things happen. And, sharing the show with a friend, that's a big deal. If you can word of mouth spread a show, it is one of the most powerful ways of growing an audience possible. And once again, this is a non-profit podcast. It's literally don't make a cent from it. It's between myself and people within my life that have actually invested to make this thing happen. And of course, the time that I put into the show every week, along with Blake's time and the time of every voice that you've ever heard on this show, just because we love talking about Star Wars and we love to know that you guys are listening. So that's the biggest help that you guys can make is honestly sharing the show. So for those of you guys who are wondering what's coming up in the next week or so, like I mentioned before, we have Book of Boba Fett Chapter 2 around the corner, which we're going to be doing review/after show for. And beyond that, we're going to be doing more What Happened episodes, possibly for even Fennec Shand and other characters. We have a whole list of them to get through at some point. But we kind of fill the time with those when we have the time to research and make it feel a bit more complete. We'd love to do a recap or a look back at 2021, because I think I've done one of those before. And we're going to talk about just between me and Blake as to what we covered, what we talked about within the last year, and just a bit more extensively. Not so much of what we do on the show, but what we actually did last year, and we'd love to see you guys return for that. So thank you once again, each and every one of you, for all your love and support for the show. and we'd love to keep having you guys tune in. May the Force be with you, and we'll see you in the next one.